Welcome to the dark side of love. My stepson whispered my name at midnight. I never expected what he did next there. Our moments in life brief, almost weightless moments that tear open the ordinary and expose something raw, something forbidden. 1 second, you're standing on familiar ground. The next, you're spiraling into depths you never imagined you'd explore. What if love isn't always gentle, or right, or simple? What if it hides behind locked doors and whispered names at midnight? Today's story begins in stillness, but it ends in fire. This is not a tale for the faint of heart. It's about the kind of connection that sneaks up on you when you're least prepared. The kind that changes everything forever. So subtle. Listen closely. This is where it all began. Chapter 1. Silence and shadow steers. That's how long it had been since Adrian passed away, my husband, my anchor. The man who once filled this home with warmth. But after his death, everything in the house, every wall, every chair, every breath felt colder. Except for Noah. My stepson, who had grown from a quiet, awkward teenager into something else. Something I hadn't let myself truly see until one particular evening. It started like any other evening. I was curled up on the living room couch, legs tucked under me, a movie flickering quietly on the screen. Noah had joined me, sprawled beside me like he owned the entire couch and the silence between us. At first, it felt comforting, familiar. But that night, there was something different in the air. I noticed how his shoulders had broadened, how his voice had deepened, how his jaw had taken on that sharp edge that only appears when boyhood finally gives way to manhood. He wasn't the little boy I used to help with homework, or the shy teen I once bought acne cream for at the pharmacy. No, Noah had become a man, and it stunned me. I looked away, tried to refocus on the screen, but something in me had already shifted. And I hadn't even realized this was only the beginning. Chapter 2. The eyes that linger at the movie had a few romantic moments. Nothing explicit, just tension, chemistry. But it stirred something. Noah leaned back, his arm resting lazily on the back of the couch, and I could feel the weight of his presence. At some point, his shoulder brushed mine. It should have been nothing, but it wasn't. There was a breath, just a whisper of air against my cheek, and my entire body tensed. His face had drifted closer, not enough to seem intentional, but close, enough to make my heart pound. I dared a glance, and when our eyes met, I saw something that froze me in place. Depth, not curiosity, not confusion, but awareness. He was aware of me not as his stepmother, but as a woman. I blinked, looked away. My thoughts raced. No, Evelyn, you're imagining things. It's the movie. It's been a long day, but my gut, it screamed otherwise. When he spoke, his voice low, barely above a whisper, it broke the silence in the most unexpected way. Evelyn, I just want to thank you for everything. I turned to him, slowly. What do you mean, for being here? He said, his voice trembling with something I couldn't place. Since Dad passed, you've been my only constant. You didn't have to stay, but you did. And because of that, I have never felt alone. It should have been a sweet, emotional moment, but there was something in his eyes. The way he said you, the way he didn't look away. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and yet a strange warmth bloomed inside me. Chapter 3. The gaze that burns. Days that followed were filled with a subtle, unbearable tension. Noah began doing things he'd never done before, offering help around the house, lingering longer in conversations, watching me as I moved through the kitchen, the hallway, the garden. It wasn't obvious, at least, not at first. But the way his eyes followed me, it wasn't innocent. One morning, I was on my knees scrubbing a coffee stain from the wooden floor. Noah walked in, paused, and without a word, took the cloth from my hand. "I'll do it," he said. I blinked. "No, really. It's okay. You shouldn't have to do everything alone. Evelyn, you're not just some woman in this house. You're the woman of this house." Something in my chest cracked open. I looked at him and saw the sincerity in his gaze. No playfulness. No awkwardness. Just intensity. Later that day, while I cooked, I caught his reflection in the kitchen window leaning against the counter, arms crossed, just watching. His eyes wandered. Not rudely, not brazenly, but slowly, deliberately. From my waist to my back to my hair. It had been years since anyone had looked at me like that. And I liked it. God help me, I liked it. Chapter 4, The Mirror. Never least the evening, after Noah left the kitchen, I walked to my bedroom and stood in front of the mirror for the first time in what felt like forever. I really looked at myself, not just glanced, but looked up. My figure was still there, the curves, the softness, the strength. Years of taking care of myself had gifted me with a toned body, a flat stomach, and full hips that my old jeans still adored. My hair, medium brown and wavy, cascaded down to my shoulders. My skin still smooth, still glowing, and my eyes, they were alive. I wasn't young anymore, but I wasn't done either. I had been hiding, not from the world, but from myself. Until now. Chapter 5. A night to remember. It was a Tuesday. I remember that clearly. The sun had dipped below the horizon by the time I stepped back into the house. I had spent most of the day out, running errands, trying to shake off the lingering tension between Noah and me. I told myself it was all in my head. But what I saw when I entered the living room that night stopped me in my tracks. Candlelight. Soft, warm glows flickered on nearly every surface. The scent of roses, fresh, sweet, and unmistakably intentional, drifted through the air. A table had been set near the window, clothed in deep burgundy linen, and adorned with crystal glasses and a bottle of wine already uncorked. My first thought was, this can't be real. But then Noah walked in. He was dressed differently, sharper, more deliberate. A crisp white shirt hugged his chest, tucked neatly into fitted black slacks. His hair was combed back, and there was a quiet pride in his smile as he approached me. "Happy birthday," he said. I stood still. My birthday. I had forgotten it myself. He handed me a box, simple, elegant. Inside was a dress, red, silk, floor length, backless. A slit so high I could feel the heat rush to my cheeks before I even held it up. "Noah," I began, my voice barely a whisper. "I wanted tonight to be special for you," he said. "You've spent so many years making others feel loved. You deserve to feel that way, too." I wanted to say something, anything, to lighten the weight in my chest. But the look in his eyes told me this wasn't just a gesture. This was deliberate. This was personal. Chapter 6. The dress that changed everything. G stood in front of the mirror in my room, holding the dress up to my body. My hands trembled as I slipped into it. The fabric was soft against my skin, almost sinful in how it clung to me. The slit exposed my leg in a way that felt daring, seductive. The back, bare, vulnerable. It was a dress for a woman, not a mother, not a widow. I stared at myself, at the way the red hugged my curves, the way my collarbones stood out like they were sculpted by an artist. I hadn't seen myself this way in a long, long time. And then I smiled, not because I was proud, not because I was flattered, but because for the first time in years, I felt alive, feminine, desired, and somewhere beneath the layers of guilt and restraint, I liked it. Chapter 7. The dinner that wasn't about dinner. When I walked back into the living room, Noah stood by the table, pouring wine. His eyes lifted the moment he saw me, and his expression, it shifted. Admiration, longing, maybe even awe. He didn't say a word at first. He didn't have to. His eyes said everything. "You look breathtaking," he finally murmured. I laughed nervously. "It's the dress, no," he said softly. "It's you." We sat down. The food takeout, beautifully plated, remained untouched for a while. The music playing in the background was soft, sensual, almost like a heartbeat echoing between us. At first, we talked about mundane things, his college plans, the garden, the neighbors. But gradually, the conversation tilted. "Evelyn," he said suddenly, voice low. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded, unsure of what was coming. "How is it that a woman like you is alone?" I felt the breath catch in my throat. "I mean," he continued, "you're smart, beautiful, kind. I've watched you give everything to others. But who's giving anything to you?" I looked down at my glass. The wine shimmered like liquid truth. "Sometimes," I whispered, "we get used to silence, to being overlooked. It becomes easier than hoping for something more." His gaze didn't leave mine. "You deserve more." There was silence, but it wasn't empty. It pulsed between us, alive, hot, undeniable. Chapter 8. The words we never say now, Noah said, swirling his wine. "I used to be scared of this house. After Dad passed, everything here reminded me of what we lost." I nodded. "Me too." "But then you stayed," he said, "and everything changed. You didn't just keep the lights on. You gave this house a soul again." There was an ache in his voice, raw and open. And then he leaned closer. His eyes were dark pools of longing. And I knew, in that exact moment, something irreversible was about to happen. "Evelyn," he said, "I think about you more than I should." My lips parted. My pulse drummed so loud I could barely hear the rest. "I know you're my stepmother. I know what this sounds like. But I don't care. I see you, not as someone who raised me, but as a woman I want." There was no pretense anymore. Noah wasn't just confessing. He was crossing a line that had long blurred. And the worst part, I wasn't stopping him. Chapter 9. The kiss. I don't remember how close he moved, or when exactly he reached for my hand. But suddenly, we were inches apart. His breath was warm on my face. His lips slightly parted. And then just like that, he kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't a stolen moment. It was a question, a declaration, a promise. I froze, and then melted. I hadn't been kissed like that in years. And as much as my mind screamed that it was wrong, my body, my heart, they didn't resist. When we broke apart, I pulled away, trembling. "This isn't right," I said, barely audible. I need to go to my room." He nodded slowly, his chest rising and falling like waves crashing against. "Reason. I'm sorry," he said, "but I don't regret it." Chapter 10. The whisper at midnight locked my bedroom door behind me, my hands shaking. I sat at the edge of the bed, unable to process the chaos inside me. My reflection stared back from the mirror, her expression lost between fear and desire. The wine, the kiss, the words, they all swirled inside me like a storm. And then, just as my head hit the pillow, a creak. The door, and a whisper. "Evelyn, Noah." He stood there, half in shadow, half in candlelight, his eyes filled with urgency and something more. "I know I shouldn't be here," he said, stepping closer. "But I can't help it." My breath caught again. I wanted to tell him to leave, but I did in single quotes instead. I whispered back, "Why are you here, Noah?" His voice was steady. "Because I want you. Because I've wanted you for a long time. I sat up, my heart pounding in my throat. I should have pushed him away, but instead, I said something I never thought I'd say out loud. I want you to. Chapter 11. Unraveling. Noah stood at the edge of my room, the flickering light casting soft shadows on his face, making him look older, more grounded, more real. Every breath he took felt like it drew him closer, not just to me, but to a place we couldn't return from. He didn't touch me, not yet. He waited, letting the moment hang between us like the last leaf on a tree before winter claims it. I don't know when it started, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But I look at you now, and I see someone who's been everything to me, everything I never had. I swallowed hard, trying to steady the storm in my chest. Do you even understand what this means? I asked. He stepped forward. I understand that I've never been more sure of anything. I should have stopped it. But the truth was I didn't want to. Not anymore. And as I stood there, with the weight of our choices pressing in, I whispered, then closed the door. And he did. Chapter 12. Crossing the limit. There's a silence that falls just before everything changes. It isn't peaceful. It's thick, alive. Electrified. Noah walked slowly, carefully, like every step was a test to see if I would push him back. But I didn't move. I couldn't. His fingers brushed my arm, then slid up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. A simple touch, but it unraveled me. I felt the straps of the red dress fall from my shoulders. One at a time, my hands, trembling, moved instinctively to meet his. And for a brief moment, just a moment, we stood there, both of us breathing, both of us suspended between the lives we knew and the lives we were about to destroy. And then his lips met mine again. It wasn't like the first kiss. This one was raw, desperate, honest. He held me like I was a secret he'd been dying to tell. And now that it was out, he never wanted to let it go. The room spun. Or maybe I did. We collapsed onto the bed slowly, deliberately, as though every second was a step deeper into an ocean we couldn't escape. Chapter 13. The point of nitrogen monoxide returned. That night was filled with more than just touch. It was filled with confessions, with years of buried loneliness, with whispered truths we didn't dare speak in daylight. For the first time since Audrey N. died, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I felt alive, and that scared me more than anything, because it wasn't just the wine, or the candles, or the need. It was the bond. It was the realization that somewhere along the way, Noah had stopped being just a boy I raised. He had become a man I saw. A man who saw me. As the hours passed, our breathing slowed, our hands calmed, and we lay side by side, quiet, exhausted, entwined. But the silence that came afterward was not peace. It was the sound of reality returning, and it returned hard. Chapter 14. The morning after. Sunlight always finds the cracks. I woke before Noah did. His arm was draped over me, his chest rising and falling in a rhythm I knew I'd missed the moment he left that bed. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake him, and reached for the sheet to cover myself. The air in the room felt different in daylight, less romantic, more exposed. I looked at the clock. 8:12 a.m. What now? My heart was still racing from the night before, but my mind was already screaming. What have you done, Evelyn? When Noah stirred, he reached for me instinctively. You're up, he murmured. I nodded, avoiding his eyes. I need a shower. He sat up, tussling his hair, his bare chest catching the golden light. Evelyn, he said softly, are you okay? I didn't answer. I just walked to the bathroom, shut the door, and pressed my forehead against the cold tile wall. I wasn't okay, and I didn't know if I ever would be again. Chapter 15. Distance the following days were difficult. We barely spoke. Noah went back to college classes, retreating into silence when he was home. I buried myself in chores, pretending everything was fine, pretending nothing had happened. But everything had changed. One evening, as I was folding laundry in the bedroom, he appeared at the door. "You're avoiding me," he said. I paused, my fingers tightening on a towel. "I'm trying to make sense of things," I replied. He stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. "I'm not going to pretend it was a mistake, because it wasn't. I meant every second of it." I turned to face him. "But we crossed a line, and you didn't stop me," he said. "Why?" That question pierced me deeper than anything else. I wanted to tell him I didn't know, that I was confused, that I had been vulnerable, but that wasn't the truth. "I didn't stop you," I said, "because I didn't want to." He exhaled sharply, like those words gave him permission to breathe. "But wanting something doesn't make it right." "I don't care about right," he said. "I care about real. And what we had, what we felt, it was real. And it was. That was the most dangerous part of all." Chapter 16. Fell out. You think these kinds of stories end with some clear moral, some resolution wrapped neatly in a bow. But they don't. Not in real life. The truth is, love isn't always clean. Sometimes it grows in the cracks where it's not supposed to. Sometimes it starts with grief and ends in something neither person can name without shame. Noah and I never told anyone. Not because we were cowards, but because what we shared existed outside the bounds of what others would ever understand. In the months that followed, we drifted. Not out of anger, not out of regret, but because reality leaves little room for things born in midnight silence. He moved out, got a job in another city. And though we texted here and there, the calls stopped. Eventually, life has a way of sweeping people into new chapters. As for me, I stayed in the house, alone again. But changed. Because no matter how quiet the days became, I carried something with me. A memory. A fire. A night where the world stopped, and for the briefest of moments, I felt seen. Chapter 17. What remains if you've made it this far? Maybe you understand. Maybe you've loved someone you weren't supposed to love. Maybe you've been touched in the dark and felt alive for the first time in years. Maybe you've tasted something so real it scared you. That's the thing about the dark side of love. It doesn't ask for permission. It simply arrives unexpected, uninvited, and alters everything. Noah and I will always share that night, that confession, that flame. And while I don't know if I'll ever feel that again, I also know I wouldn't erase it, because even the wrong kind of love can show you what it means to be truly wanted. Outro. If this story has stirred something inside you, don't keep it buried. Comment below. Share what you felt, what you thought, what you couldn't say out loud. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that uncover the hidden, complicated, and sometimes forbidden corners of the heart. This was the dark side of love, and we're just getting started.